The Mountain Goats just recently released their latest album, All Eternal's Deck. The band revolves around singer John Darnielle, who first began releasing material on cassettes in the early 90s before putting out his first CDs a few years later. The new album is actually the band's 15th overall. We'll start with a performance of Liza Forever Minnelli.
There's the part you've braced yourself against, and then there's the other part. Scale up inclining northward streets with some weird sickness in the dark. Saw your name on the sidewalk, saw your brave face in my mind. If you wanna sit next to the dealer, you have to bet blind. Never get away, I am never ever gonna get away from this place. Lay down on the street, my eyes toward the sun, your star next to my face. The compasses I came into this world with never really worked so good. Gentle shadows spilling down the hills, up on Mulholland at Ledgewood. Turn back, and find someone to tell your secrets to. Dream past an old hotel on Ivar, and seconds later I saw you. Never get away, I am never ever gonna get away from this place. Lay down on the street, my eyes toward the sun, your star next to my face. Let the camera track me from the footlights to the wings. Let me set aside an hour or two in memory of sweet things. Regrind the lens again and again and again and again and again and again, and still the picture flips. Anyone here mentions Hotel California dies before the first line clears his lips. Never get away, I am never ever gonna get away from this place. Lay down on the street, my eyes toward the sun, your star next to my face.
An endlessly decaying cymbal finishes Liza Forever Minnelli, which is actually the final song on All Eternal's Deck, the new album from Mountain Goats. All 3 word titles.
Yes,
and it's hard to discuss that song without ending my life, but I would say that it is one of 3 songs on this album that have iconic movie figures in it: Liza Minnelli, Judy Garland, and Charles Bronson, of all people. Do these songs come up while you're watching movies? Or?
Sometimes. For Charles Bronson, totally did. I was watching a movie called Red Sun, and it's a Japanese movie actually that was shot in the U.S. that he was in, and it's a weird turn. It's got Toshiro Mifune in it, and you think, wow, this is Charles Bronson doing this strange sort of turn, and you look up his biography and learn some stuff about him. He's an interesting dude.
Tell me more.
Well, he grew up in incredible poverty in Erenfield, Pennsylvania, and like serious, the sort of poverty that when a lot of us who grew up without a lot of money feel like we know what it's like to be poor, but Depression era kids, it's a whole different deal. You know, it's there was one pair of clothes for the 9 children in his household to share. So when he went to school one day, he's wearing a dress because that's all they had, right? And he grew up in this crushing poverty. And the song is just pretty much a straight bio. He really did lie about how old he was throughout his entire career. And he seemed like a real survivor type, a guy who hung around the edges of the business long enough until he found his niche. And I've said this a couple times. I think this record is largely about surviving. You know, it's about surviving things that might have crushed you.
Yeah, people are expecting themes after the last album, and you've written about yourself and a few of them. But the themes don't necessarily appear at the beginning, right? They appear when you're done, or
I mean, that's the case with all of them. The only record I've ever written with a concept in front of me as I was writing was Tallahassee, and the rest of them, it's like I write, and then I say, oh, what's going on here? But to me, if I can preserve the mystery of not entirely knowing what I'm doing, if I can be wearing a blindfold half the time, that's when the best work tends to come out. I didn't, when I wrote The Sunset Tree, I didn't sit down and say, I'm going to write these autobiographical songs. I was just in a sort of horrible emotional state on tour in Europe, and I sat down to write songs, and these things just bubbled up. And I think if I'd have sat down and said, let me write about my adolescence, I don't think that would have been as good as just letting it sort of happen in a sort of spastic, natural way.
I think I may be a natural Mountain Goats fan, is that I'm the kind of person who just loves lyrics, and I love it when there is a phrase that just completely captures me, and when the next phrase builds on that and captures me even more, and then I realize the entire, I mean, a good example would be that song we just heard. You write really intense little phrases. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that you started writing poetry.
Right.
But do they come in a flow like that, or do you have to match up these phrases?
The titles, these titles I wrote ahead of time. Right. I would wait until I had a title idea, and I had kept a little tiny notebook with these 3-word titles in it, and then I would say, oh, it feels like a song's coming on. So I'd look for one of these titles and use that as a sort of a touchstone. But the actual process of writing the lyrics is something where I tend to sit down and in a big flood sort of let them come. Then there's a lot of revising to do. But the songs, I tend to not want to get up until the song is done. Age of Kings is a notable exception.
Well, if I understand correctly, that's pretty amazing. You write to the title.
Not usually. Usually the title comes later, and the title caps it. But with these, I wanted the titles to be sort of occult symbols, you know, so few of the titles have a direct, obvious relation. I mean, a couple of them do. Age of Kings, I say Age of Kings in it, but Prowl, Great Cain, you have to sort of figure it out. And I had that phrase for a long time, and there were a couple of songs that tried to be Prowl, Great Cain, and I was like, what's it really about? Where's this Cain figure that I want who has betrayed his brother? And then I got it, you know, then I put it in Cambodia in '79.
Well, can you do that one?
Yeah, let's do it. Gather jewels from graveyards when I get home, bury them again. Wonder if you'll ever get the chance to ask me why I turned you in. I saved my own skin, but I lived to fight another day. Still remember how brave you were when they came to take you away. And I feel guilty, but I can't feel ashamed. Prowl through empty fields, Great Cain. Thought I'd seen a ghost up on the boulevard between the broken bits. It's hard to tell gifts of the spirit from clever counterfeits. Sleepwalk through my days and I mark the hours until these dark times fade. Like a caterpillar crawling out along the surface of the blade. And I feel guilty, but I can't feel ashamed. Prowl through empty fields, Great Cain.
Prowl, Great Cain. That's another one from the new Mountain Goats album called All Eternal's Deck. The band's playing live for us today. I want to talk a little bit about the aesthetics of your albums as they progressed. You're incredibly prolific, and a lot of the early ones were lo-fi, defining lo-fi in many ways. I mean, singing into a boombox, things like that. What was your feeling about that? Was that a conscious aesthetic thing, or is that just what you knew how to do? You wanted to get the songs out, and how did the change? How did you, maybe I won't say justify is too strong a word, but how did you make the change, and why?
Well, I mean, it started out just as a thing to do. You know, when you're 19 or so, you had some money, and me and my friend Mark Givens wanted to do some new recordings with our old act, The Congress, and so we bought this thing that we thought we'd be able to sort of trick multi-track on, which as it turned out we couldn't. But then I had this boombox, and then I was living in Norwalk, and I just started using it. So it was a what they call a crime of opportunity, right? That it was there, so I took it, you know, but then I really liked the way it sounded. It's not like I couldn't. I had a friend of mine I was working with loaned me some gigantic to me at the time, it was 16 or 24 track workstation thing, and I played with it, but to me it just sounded better to do it live, you know, and so that was what I did for a long time. But then Rachel started playing bass, and you can't really do that on a boombox, so we went into a local studio and did our stuff. Then I went back to the boombox when I moved because I was working by myself, and it's hard for me to conceive of doing a all live guitar and voice album in a studio environment when I can do it comfortably into a boombox at home. But when you work with other musicians, it makes more sense to make it sound as much, you know, to bring up all the sounds as best you can.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a whole list of places and studios where you did this. Is that just from you were out touring, or? No,
it's the second time in a row we've done it that way, and I feel it's like I am in possession of a great secret with this, because usually when you go in to make a record, sort of the done way is you dig in, you set up camp, right, and you go in and you're there for 2 weeks or however long, and you work and work and work, right? But that's sort of committing. I mean, think of a vacation where something goes. If you catch dysentery on a vacation, right? Well, there goes your vacation, right? And if you go to the studio and something goes south, or you get sick, and you're there to make the next record, and there's all that pressure, you know, you lose control of the ship. For me, and when we made the last record, just out of necessity, I was like, well, we'll do 3 days here, we'll do 2 days here, and it just took off all the pressure. It was like so easy. You're never making the album. You're just sitting there doing some songs, and if a session doesn't work out, you just don't use it, you know. And it's so much easier than doing a thing where, imagine if in your day job you had to show up for 2 weeks out of the 52, but you had to just be awesome for every day of those 2 weeks, or you lose your job, right? So yeah, it's like I don't foresee ever going back to the dig in for 2 weeks way, because it just is so much easier to just go someplace and have like a weekend of playing music with your buds, you know.
God, it sounds great.
It is awesome.
But now you've let it out, and so other people are going to do that.
They should. It's like, no, when I'm holding my, how to succeed in indie rock if you have 20 years on your hands seminar, that's going to be a big, a whole day's lecture.
Absolutely. Well, I talked about how prolific you are, and I'm wondering if you either have something new you want to do, or you want to maybe look back and do something older.
Going to do a song off of All Hail West Texas called Jeff Davis County Blues.
Cool.
After 2 nights in jail, head north from Toyavale, switch to 285 in Pecos, and head up to Red Bluff. My walks feel steady and my eyes are real cold, but I feel like I'm only 15 years old, lost in the Travelodge with the television on and the sound down. I don't feel so tough. Old issues of Sunset magazine to read, sleep for 12 hours, dream about home. I have no place to go, so fix my eyes in the rear view when I cross the state line. And I panic, I guess, and although it's quite late, I take the next exit to 128. I am heading home to Midland, and I hope you won't mind. Polaroids of the two of us scattered on the passenger seat. I drive slowly, and I drive evenly, and I dream about home. Oh my God, I love playing music.
That's good. That's good that you do.
It's really fun.
You've chosen the right work.
Yeah.
Or has chosen you.
Yes.
As it may well be.
Yes, because I was going to be a nurse. I was going to work in cardiac cath lab. It was going to be awesome. But
you were a nurse, right?
I was a psych nurse for a long time, and then I worked. My licensure was psych tech licensure, and that doesn't exist in Iowa. So instead of lateraling to LVN, which is what I might have done if I want to go back to school, I just worked as a counselor for about a decade.
And my understanding is you didn't really take this music part of it seriously for a while.
No, well, I mean,
I don't know if seriously is the right word.
I think I still don't take it seriously in a lot of ways, because I think taking it seriously is sort of the death of creativity. It's like creativity is about finger painting, and playing with mud, So, but yeah, it was. I was pretty adamant about the fact that this is not my job. My job is to take care of children, and what I do, to inspire myself when I get home is work on songs. But eventually, it got kind of bigger than me, and I had to leave my job. It was hard.
I bet. John Darnielle and Mountain Goats, our guest. Thank you very, very much for setting up here today.
Oh, so much my pleasure.